Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Tonight, we stand at a critical juncture, a moment that will define the future of nations and the daily lives of millions. The global order is being redrawn, not on battlefields but in boardrooms and government offices where decisions are made that ripple across continents. The catalyst? Energy. Oil and natural gas are no longer just fuels, they're levers of power, shaping the fate of economies. The rules are changing fast, and the stakes have never been higher. This isn't a distant drama. It's a story that will hit your wallet, your job, and the balance of global power. Every household, every business will feel the impact as the world shifts beneath our feet. Two major energy exporters, Canada and Qatar, are pivoting away from the United States after a wave of steep tariffs from the Trump administration. Their response is reshaping the flow of global energy. For decades, America was their top customer. Now they're forging new alliances and rerouting energy to Asia and Europe, redrawing the map of global trade in real time. This is a strategic realignment with profound consequences, affecting not just governments but the very structure of international relations. The decisions made today in Ottawa and Doha will echo worldwide for years, influencing everything from energy prices to diplomatic alliances. This is more than a trade dispute, it's a challenge to America's central role in the global economy, and a test of its influence on the world stage. As old allies look elsewhere, new economic corridors are emerging, potentially isolating the US and shifting the balance of power toward new centers. When energy flows change, so does international influence. The world's alliances and rivalries are being rewritten before our eyes. Is this a temporary disruption or the start of a permanent global split? The stakes touch everything from high-level diplomacy to your heating bill and the price you pay at the pump. Tonight, we dive into the escalating trade war reshaping our world and explore what it means for the future we all share. To understand today's upheaval, we must look at the policies that sparked it. President Trump's renewed America First doctrine uses tariffs to protect U.S. industries and pressure trading partners. The administration's use of Section 232 allows sweeping tariffs on imports, citing national security. What began with steel and aluminum now includes energy products from close allies. As of September 2025, 96 countries face a baseline 10% tariff on all goods to the U.S., with 62 facing even higher rates. This multi-front trade war targets not just rivals like China, but also NATO and G7 partners. The end of the de minimis exemption means even small online purchases are now taxed. The result? Global uncertainty, with allies like Canada and Qatar forced to rethink their economic futures. America's largest trading partners now see it as their most unpredictable one. The US-Canada trade relationship, once seamless, is now under severe strain. In early 2025, President Trump imposed a 35% tariff on many Canadian imports, including energy, a direct blow to Canada's economy. While some goods remain tariff-free under USMCA, key sectors like energy are hit hard. The White House justified the move on national security grounds, a rationale that baffled Canadian leaders. At the same time, Qatar, second largest LNG exporter, faced a 10% tariff on its US-bound exports. For both nations, the message was clear: the US market is no longer a safe bet. The latest tariffs, including a 100% duty on some pharmaceuticals and 25% on heavy trucks, reinforced this hardline approach. Canada and Qatar realized they needed new strategies, fast. Relying on the American market had become too risky. The search for new partners began in earnest. Canada is making a historic pivot, redirecting its energy exports from the US to Asia. The new LNG Canada terminal in Kitimat, BC, shipped its first cargo to Asia in June 2025, a landmark moment. This terminal, with a 14 million-ton annual capacity, opens a direct gateway to Japan, South Korea, and China. Canada's government frames this as both economic diversification and an environmental strategy, helping Asia reduce coal use. New pipelines and export terminals are in the works, ensuring this is just the beginning. For decades, the US enjoyed privileged access to Canadian energy, often at a discount. Now Canada is selling on the open market, fetching higher prices and building resilient trade ties. This shift weakens US energy security and loosens century-old economic bonds. Canada's message: it will no longer be a captive supplier. The energy map of North America is being rewritten. Qatar's response to US tariffs is to double down on global LNG dominance. The Northfield expansion will boost Qatar's LNG capacity from 77 to 142 million tons per year by 2030. By flooding the market with affordable LNG, Qatar aims to outcompete US and other suppliers, especially in Asia and Europe. Long-term contracts with China, India, and Germany lock in market share and stability. This expansion, accelerated by US tariffs, is Qatar's main weapon in the global energy war. The US hoped to lead the LNG market, but now faces a formidable low-cost rival. Qatar's strategy is about more than gas, it's about projecting power and securing its future. The US tariffs have inadvertently fueled Qatar's ambitions. The race for LNG supremacy is on, and Qatar is determined to win. Canada and Qatar's pivots are sending shockwaves through the US economy. US refineries, especially in the Midwest, now face supply shortages and higher costs as Canadian oil is diverted to Asia. Tariffs act as a tax on imports, raising prices for American businesses and consumers. The end of the de minimis exemption means everyday goods are more expensive, fueling inflation. Retaliatory tariffs from China have hit US LNG and agriculture hard. Soybean exports to China have halted, devastating American farmers. The administration's proposed bailouts offer little comfort to those losing critical markets. International companies are wary of investing in US supply chains, fearing sudden policy shifts. Alliances are fraying, and global trust in the US as a business partner is eroding. The uncertainty is a hidden tax, making it harder for American businesses to plan and grow. Around the world, leaders and experts are sounding the alarm, warning that the global trade landscape is shifting in ways we haven't seen in decades. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney declares, "We will no longer let foreign trade policies dictate our destiny." The time has come for Canada to chart its own course, independent of outside pressures. "We're building new paths to new partners," he continues, as Canada invests in infrastructure and forges fresh alliances across the Pacific. LNG Canada's leaders call their first Asian shipment a declaration of economic independence, a milestone that signals a new era for Canadian exports. Energy analysts warn the US is pushing its most stable supplier, Canada, to sell to competitors, risking a decades-old partnership. At the same time, US policies are motivating Qatar to cap US LNG growth, opening the door for new players in the global energy market. Many see these moves as strategically short-sighted for America, potentially weakening its influence and economic security. US farm leaders express deep concern. "Our farmers spent decades building relationships with China. These ties are not easily replaced." Losing that market overnight is devastating, threatening livelihoods and rural communities across the country. The domestic cost of tariffs is mounting, with higher prices hitting consumers and businesses alike. These pressures are creating political and economic divisions. Even America's closest allies are growing frustrated and impatient. A European trade official says partnership requires predictability and trust. Without it, cooperation becomes much harder. We're now building more resilient supply chains, less dependent on the US. Nations aren't abandoning America, but they're hedging their bets, diversifying partnerships and investments to reduce risk. The world is building options, so no single country, not even the US, can disrupt the system alone. This is a fundamental shift in global strategy. The global mood, resolve, caution, and a search for new stability. Leaders everywhere are preparing for a more unpredictable future. The era of US trade dominance is under challenge, and the world is watching to see what comes next. This trade war is a global power play, reshuffling the world's energy deck and redrawing the lines of influence that have defined the last century. The US, once poised to lead the global LNG market, is now undermining its own influence with aggressive tariffs and unpredictable trade policies, sending shockwaves through the energy sector. China, targeted by US tariffs, is responding strategically, signing long-term energy deals with Qatar and Canada, and deepening ties with America's former partners to secure its own energy future. Russia, too, is capitalizing on the moment, signing major gas deals with China and exploiting Western divisions to expand its reach in Asia. The instability is accelerating a shift to a multipolar world, with the EU, China, and energy powers like Qatar asserting more autonomy and seeking new alliances beyond traditional partners. Canada's pivot to Asia is a model for middle powers forging their own paths, showing how nations can adapt and thrive in a rapidly changing global landscape. The US remains the world's largest economy, but its ability to dictate global trade is waning as new players rise and old alliances shift. Ironically, Tariffs meant to assert U.S. dominance are encouraging the world to build a system less dependent on America, accelerating the move toward alternative trade networks. The post-war era of U.S.-led trade is fading, as the world's economic center of gravity shifts and new alliances take shape. A new, fragmented global order is emerging, one where power is more widely distributed, and the rules of the game are being rewritten in real time. We've traced a story of tariffs, broken alliances, and bold new strategies. Trump's trade war, meant to fortify America, has triggered a global realignment. Canada is charting a new course to Asia. Qatar is accelerating its quest for market dominance. The consequences: U.S. industries face uncertainty, farmers lose markets, and consumers pay more. America's vulnerabilities are exposed while China and Russia expand their influence. The world isn't waiting for U.S. leadership, it's building new systems less reliant on Washington. The global order is more complex and unpredictable than ever. The final outcome is unwritten, but the crossroads is clear. Decisions made now will echo for decades. Stay informed, this is a defining moment for us all.